What a weekend of football we have just had. There was Derby delight on one half and Derby disgust on the other. Roll that intro. Hello and welcome back to the Lost in Possession podcast. Before we kick things off here, just a little message to say, as it stands on average on our videos, 70.6% of you are not subscribed. So first, a very kind message, please and thank you. Hit that subscribe button. It takes 1.2 seconds and is absolutely free. But without further ado, let's kick things off. It was a huge weekend of football. We had two huge derbies. We're not counting the West London derby, the Manchester derby, and of course the North London derby. Um, half of us are happy, half of us are fuming. So let's start off with the derby discussed, the Manchester derby. Jamie, huge knockback in the title race for you guys, losing to your rivals. Couldn't get much worse. Where do we begin?
I think there's only one place to begin, and that's with this offside decision. Let's be honest, it's disgraceful. It's only going to happen at two grounds in the whole Premier League. It's Anfield and Old Trafford, and it's only going to favour them two teams at home. That's it. It's not going to, any other team in the league is not going to have it. There was just to go, like, the amount of times I've watched this offside and the more angry I get each time I've watched it, because I still do not understand how he's not interfering with play. The guy's running by the ball. Like, he couldn't do, if he just stopped when he was offside, he wouldn't have interfered, you could argue. But the fact he's running beside it, which I've got sort of three main points. I don't know if anyone's seen the picture of where they've taken Rashford out of it. So they've just coloured it in. Basically, Rashford's gone. Akanji's pretty much next to the ball with no one in his way. So one could have easily got that ball. So that's just first point of Rashford interfering. Two, Akanji's positioning of where he's going to be to sort of get the ball to defend. He's got to go around Rashford. So that's interfering with him trying to block the ball. And then thirdly, look at Ederson. Ederson's positioning is Rashford's going to take a shot. So I'm setting up for a Rashford shot on, I think it was his left foot. So to say he's not interfering is just ludicrous. And I honestly still have no idea how they've bottled this decision, because that's what it is. The refs have bottled it. I think it summed it up when you looked at the linesman. He put his flag up when that goal went in. Bruno Fernandes runs over to him. He's put the flag down and he started running 10 yards down the line away from him, scared. Referee goes over to him. They've both shit themselves, and that's it. They've gone, oh, Rashford hasn't touched it. Let's give him a goal. It's at Old Trafford. They're 1-0 down because they'll get booed or whatever. It just is so bad how we can have officials doing this. Then what makes it worse is there's no VAR check. There was no VAR check on this decision. How it's leading to a goal and it's an offside. How can VAR not be used in such a big moment in the game? Like, forget that they scored after. Forget that part. It's still a massive. It's not like it's 3-0 and 3-1 means, oh well, it doesn't matter. It's drawing the game. It means we're dropping at that point 2 points, and then you've obviously got the momentum, which meant they went and scored the second. How can VAR not be used? And this is why I don't have a problem with VAR. I think it's actually good to use technology to help the game. The referees are useless. There's a handful, and I can't even think of any names that I would actually go, yeah, he's a decent referee. Like, I can't think of many. I can't think of any, to be honest, at the top of my head. Then if you go to Sky Sports, do a review on some of the decisions, what do they say? That should be offside. if I was refereeing that game, it's offside. The only person who would agree with the onside decision did, and that's Peter Walton, because he's never disagreed with a referee decision. He's
Good old
never.
Peter.
I don't think he's on BT and he just goes, "Yeah, the referee's right." Doesn't matter. The referee could kick someone in the head and he'd go, "Yeah, the referee was right." That's just the way Peter Walton is. Now, you've seen tons of players come out with tweets going, clearly referee, these people who are reffing this game don't understand football. Like, they don't understand playing football. Because I haven't actually seen a tweet that has come out and gone, I actually think that was right. You had Luke Shaw in his press conference after going, if that happened against us, I'd be absolutely fuming. Then
It's
you've
quite
got
rare. It's quite rare you see that
it,
as well.
it's,
That does say it all.
that says it all. And then you've got Mark Goldbridge, who's obviously another sort of YouTuber who, if you don't know, he's bigger than us, so you probably do know. He's even gone, I don't understand. Like all jokes aside, he's a United fan, and he's got he said his dad texted him going, I wanted United to win for him because he's not a United fan. And he went, that is a disgrace of a decision. And Mark went, yeah, you're right. Obviously, he doesn't care. He's a United fan. He's benefiting from it. But you just see how, I think, unless you're a blind United fan, you're seeing that as an offside decision. That's literally everyone's seen it as an offside decision. So how can they get stuff this catastrophically wrong? And I expect an apology from the sort of referees association, but it doesn't mean anything. Now, we do get decisions ourselves, like in other terms, but when you've not used VAR and everyone's in agreement nearly on the decision, I just don't understand it. Yeah, I'm going to stop on that point before.
Well, let's. I guess we'll give our thoughts on the decision first of all. I feel like with your three bullet points, we're just missing a PowerPoint presentation of why it was offside. Reese, where do you stand on that specific offside decision before we get into the game?
I mean, it is a strange one, isn't it? When I saw it at first, I was like, that's offside. But the referees did actually apply the laws of the game because the laws have actually been recently changed. In fact, according to the Athletic here, is a player is now judged to be offside if they either touch the ball after being in offside position or their involvement stops an opposition player from playing the ball. Now, relatively, he didn't stop Akanji or anything like that.
Well, he did if he's in the way.
Well, this is where the laws can get very funny. But because Rashford ran alongside the ball but didn't touch it, and no City defenders were in a position to touch the ball and divert away from Fernandes, as a result, it meant that the goal stood. So that's very strange because it fair enough, the laws were applied. But it's strange, you've had Dermot Gallagher say he wouldn't have given it. And it does go down to referee interpretation. Many people have argued if Akanji had slide tackled or made an attempt at a tackle, that would have then been given offside. Which, of course, you can't rely on Akanji to have to use that sort of.
But if he was wrong, if he was wrong in that decision of making a tackle, which he would have been sent off then.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to make near red card tackles just because you think they're offside.
Yeah, I mean, he might not have got a red card for it because there was probably plenty sort of there to cover it. But by the law, the way the law stood, it's been given. I mean, I think it's strange. Personally, I think the interfering law should count like that. Otherwise, you're going to get people just pushing themselves further up the pitch to do that. But then again, these are it was the likes of Guardiola, it's the likes of Klopp, it's all of them that wanted this rule in the first place. We've had decisions before where a player's moved out the way or whatever, and they've all wanted it, and now they don't want it, when it goes against them. It's just life. But I was surprised it did go, but if the law has been applied, then fine. It's harsh. But it's to me, it's more of the general momentum of that goal. That decision, that changed everything. This didn't give United just an equaliser. It went on to win them the game so late on. And I think that's what's more frustrating because that really turned everything around. So, it's harsh, like because City did so well to go 1-0 up, and I can see why they're frustrated. But at the same time, I also think, this is the law we all wanted in place, and as soon as now we don't want it again.
I have to disagree there. Like, no one wanted that in place. I'm sorry, no one wanted where you're like, it's different if you're offside, the ball's meant to come towards you, and then you've just left it. Not when you're running next to the ball.
Oh, I don't like it at all, because he was running against the ball, and the ball was for him.
Well, if he pulls his hand, if Akanji pulled his hand, that wouldn't be a red card. But then that means he's interfering with play.
He would have been last man.
He might not have been.
Then,
Wasn't there another?
He was Walker. No, because otherwise Walker would have been in front of Bruno Fernandes.
And that's when it all gets a bit blurry, then, doesn't it? Because like, is it worth Akanji getting a red card for?
No, but say he just like pulled his arm, like not enough to bring him down, but like, what is it then? Like when he touches him, then he's in play, or like. I think that's what's probably not clear, even with the rule.
You shouldn't be having to risk yourself getting a red card just to hope that
it should be fair on both attacker and player, shouldn't it? Whole point of an offside is to stop attackers constantly just standing up at the other end of the pitch.
Really, I think it's obviously, I've said my bit, but it's more like, what's the point of offside if that is not offside? That's really my theory. Otherwise, it should be just the law. It should be the law that you touch it, you're offside or not.
Yeah, it's going to encourage players now to act and put that into their tactics. Oh, just run alongside the ball, stop him getting it. Because it's not, that's where it needs to be drawn the line. There had to be an incident for it to be brought under the spotlight and go, right, maybe we don't actually need this law at all. It's a shame it's happened in a game of this magnitude. It is, like, for City, but like, yeah, it is a strange one, because to me, I don't think it should be a rule, just because I think Rashford, he was told by Fernandes, not to touch it, but, and I think Fernandes' behaviour, I know heat at the moment, but I thought that was unacceptable as well.
Yeah, Fernandes is the same old guy, same old behaviour. Hopefully at some point refs will sort of clock onto that. Yeah, I mean, my take on it, like, I think I was more, at the time it went in, I was more in the camp of decisions correct. And the reason I said it initially at the time was when basically the 2 or 3 replays I saw straight after, I was looking at the runs of Akanji and Walker. And normally with players, when they see a runner go across, you see a bit of hesitation or slowing down. Neither of them did. So initially watching it, I was like, oh, it's not actually impacted their trajectory. However, 4th, 5th replays, one of the things I noticed was it's actually Edison's position for me that is the big factor. Because Edison, as you said, Jamie, if you look at Edison's position, he comes out as if Rashford's going to shoot. And look, it's still a good finish, whatever. But for me, it's actually less about Akanji and Walker, and it's actually more about Edison coming out, anticipating the shot. Then it's not Rashford, then it's Fernandes, and there's a bit of a gap. So I've sort of flip-flopped on it. But yeah, the conclusion, probably siding more so with you, Jamie, in this case, but the conclusion in the end is just it's a poor decision in a big game. And those ridiculous decisions, we've seen it happen against us at Anfield. It always seems to be the big home teams with the crowd get those decisions in the big games. And that's in every game we've seen it. I don't know why, crowd pressure, manager pressure, whatever it is, refs have got it's human nature to some degree, but refs have got to be better. In terms of the actual game, like, moving on from the decision slightly, to play devil's advocate, I do think the decision and the way it played out has taken a bit of attention off City. And although, yes, you were better in the second half, you didn't create much. And I don't think on balance of the game you deserve to win. And the stats suggest I'm right on that. 0.65 XG, 1 shot on target. And again, I don't think we've mentioned it on the podcast, but you've gone away to Southampton, bottom of the league. I think maybe 1 or less than, not even 1 shot on target. So that's 2 shots on target max in 2 games. So yes, the decision was awful and it shouldn't have happened. But I do think there's a little bit of a dip in City at the minute, and I do think there's something going on. I don't know what, but yeah, you've been. It's so rare we see City in back-to-back games not be good enough, and I don't know. I think there's something going on.
I think there's a few players who have just hit a bit of a bad form, and I don't know whether it's coming up back from the World Cup, because I do agree. I think our form has dropped slightly. Like, we played Leeds on the 28th of December, and Leeds were very poor that night. Like, they couldn't string 3-4 passes together, so it was a comfortable win. But we still looked like conceding in that game, and we ended up doing that. Then when we played Everton, I'm still going to go down. It's a 0.05 XG goal that's gone in, and it won goal of the month, and it was a terrific goal. So it's just like one of them, but it looked like we didn't create enough to win that game comfortably like we probably should have. Then when we played you at sort of Stamford Bridge, that first half, Pep messed with the tactics, but we were sloppy again. It seemed to sort of blow over because of the FA Cup game, but it didn't really, like, that game was over due to a great free kick and then Havertz being an absolute idiot, really, and that ended the game. So then, yeah, the first half against United, to get back to the derby, we had tons of the ball, but the way United set up was, like, I think the tactics from Ten Hag was very much, let's shut you out. Your centre backs can have the ball all half. You're going to try and play it into midfield. The whole point then is to win that ball back and then hit Rashford to go on and try and get a chance, like he got into one of the chances and Edison made the save. In that first half, it was kind of like, I think we didn't have a shot on target in the first half. We controlled most of the ball, but United just wanted that counter-attack kind of, that's the way their tactics set up, and it was working. Second half, though, was more of the way City play. We were all over United, but they still had that good defensive structure. So we're not a side that's going to be we're not going to cross in 20 balls in. We're going to try and make that 3-4 passes around the box before we get it in, and it just wasn't working at times. But the second half, I think we were showing much more what we actually do without the shots. And I don't want to credit them because I don't like them, but that's a credit to United rather than, I think, City not being great. Then there was one bit of there was a bit that they had a space open. De Bruyne gets the cross in, Grealish scores. And so that's where I think it actually worked. What our game plan was, it kind of worked. We were just probing and probing, maybe not coming off as much as we'd like, but we got that chance, we scored it.
It's not very rare. It's rare though. It's rare that City will have under 1 XG in any game with what many would call the world's best striker. You know, Haaland before the game, Haaland versus Luke Shaw. You'd bet your house on Haaland scoring, or you know.
Yeah, he
didn't have a sniff.
He didn't really go to him though. That's what I found, and I found that odd. And I also watched, I think it was Wolves. I think it was Diego Costa. And before that game, I was just like, right, Diego Costa, stick to Luke Shaw, because when that ball goes up in the air to you, you should win, let's say, 80% of them. And that's a great sort of percentage against sort of a United defender. But then Haaland didn't really do that as well. I think it was more we just didn't get the ball into the box enough. And that was kind of, yeah, I understand sort of when Luke Shaw's there, we should be targeting him, trying to dominate him in a centre-back role. It is where our goal came from, that little pocket between Luke Shaw and who was at left-back, Malacia. So that's where our goal came from. We should have done more of that, really, but it was also a slight credit to United that their defensive shape was sort of nullifying us. And when you got players who weren't hitting their proper form, it all clicks into being quite poor. Because I don't think De Bruyne wasn't at it. Fred man marked him for majority of the game and did a good job. Phil Foden wasn't really in the game much, and that's why he got subbed off for Grealish. Mahrez was probably the best out of our front three, and I wouldn't say he did a lot, but he was fouled 7 or 8 times by Malacia. I don't actually think he got booked. And you're just like, how many times do I have to watch the same foul before persistent fouling comes in? But that weren't going to change the game. The slight concerning one was after we conceded the goal, I'm going to call it, it's how defensively open we were to Garnacho playing on the sort of left wing, because Walker really should have been there. And he was too far forward, and you're like, when they've just scored, you've got to keep your defensive shape. Otherwise, momentum gets with them and they score. And that's what's happened. And I do, like, we've said it with sort of Chelsea, we've seen it with Liverpool. When teams have their they've had their defensive injuries, you will start conceding more. We have Stones was out, Diaz was out, and Laporte was on the bench because he's not 100% fit yet. So they're our 3 best centre-backs, really. Not this season, but they are overall. So it's more, is it because we're not got the centre-backs, we're not performing as well? But yeah, I know I've waffled on for quite a while, but...
Well, just I guess before we move on to the North London derby, I've got one question for you both. So, Reece, first and foremost, are Man United now in the title race? Yes or no?
Mathematically, yeah. I mean, the momentum's behind them, isn't it? So I think they're in it. You know, they play us on Sunday, so that's quite a big factor in where that's going. But I think they are.
And Jamie, a different question for you. Are you still confident Man City will win the league despite being 8 points behind?
Probably not as confident as I was. I still think we can, but these next sort of games coming up are what determine the season. We've got Spurs midweek, then it's a game against Wolves, but we've got we've got Spurs coming up twice, we've got Arsenal in the cup, and then coming up again. It's big games. It's literally like big game, big game, big game. So I think it gets determined within this. We'll know probably within a month whether we're going to be bang on it or Arsenal are going to run away with it. That's how I kind of see it. So I wouldn't say I'm confident because 8 points is a lot. But City have done it before where we've come back from 8 points behind. Yeah. So we'll see. And we've got to play Arsenal twice too, which at the moment isn't looking like an easy feat, but anything can happen.
Well, that brings us nicely on to Arsenal. So the North London derby wasn't as feisty as previous fixtures until after the game. We normally see the kicks and the aggression during the game, but instead it all kicked off at the end. Reece, this is a huge win for Arsenal, whatever way you look at it. How happy were you with the result and the performance?
Oh, massive, 100%. You know, all round. I mean, I think that's it. It was the manner of the performance. You know, the pressure was on the team to extend the gap, and they did it comfortably as well. You know, if you look at the first half, Spurs did nothing, and it was a matter of Spurs not just being poor. It was a matter of fact that Arsenal were just 100 times better than they were. Didn't let them rest. You know, they were lucky to not have been 4-0 down at half time, and then they were still comfortable in the second half. You know, it was an outstanding performance. Saka was brilliant. Odegaard was brilliant. Thomas Partey was just marvellous. You know, if his shot would have gone in from 25 yards, that would have been goal of the season. You know, unbelievable. You know, they were absolutely outstanding. And, you know, Lloris, we have to question him again. I've been critical of him before. I'm critical of him again. That was poor. If anything, he should have stopped both goals, or at least got a touch to the second one. Arsenal was superb, and you saw it just by as well how they're all, they've got Odegaard leading by example, Xhaka, showing great leadership. Ramsdale does need to curb in his, his behaviour a little bit, but he was outstanding. I've heard that the fan that attacked him has been punished, so they've now been told they've got a season ticket for the rest of their life. So that's punishment beyond belief. He was hoping for a stadium ban, I'm sure, after watching that performance. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, yeah, it was brilliant performance. I don't sound like I'm over the moon, but I am. But there's still a long way to go. We can't just take winning against your rivals and get all excited about that. You've got to look to the next game, and that's Man United, and their game is 100 times bigger now due to what's at stake. And that's potentially extending a lead even further.
I mean, that Man United game now is monumental, really. You wouldn't have said it, as I said, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. You would have looked at that and gone, yeah, can probably beat United. But now they've found some form. They've had, they're getting a bit of luck, as we've said. So I think that's now a massive game. But you've got to compliment Arsenal. Again, it's hard for me to say, but well, I say I was wrong pre-season. I mean, I think we were all wrong about Arsenal. Even the most optimistic Arsenal fans, I don't think would have thought they'd ever be in this position. Especially given City strengthened with Haaland, other teams sign players. So again, you've got to give credit to Arteta, what he's done with no previous managerial experience, with a young squad. It is absolutely mind blowing. And not only does he deserve credit, but it also gives other teams in the league, in my opinion, a little bit of hope. We talk about long-term projects, we talk about spending, having faith in a manager, and it's definitely relevant for Chelsea at the minute as well. But this Arteta is now living proof that it's not just going to be the City show every year and they're going to run away with it. And you don't need a fully complete squad. We've said it before. I don't think Arsenal's squad it's not the best. And if you maybe had 3-4 injuries, potentially you might lose that momentum. But you're not. Everything's going your way. You're playing good football. You're not really getting that many injuries. And you just don't look like we keep saying, City will turn it on. City will turn it on. They've got to play Arsenal twice. But right now, you'd struggle to back against Arsenal, even against City. They just look so complete, so on it. And City, as I said, seem to be dipping a little bit.
I mean, they are an example of where, I think Arsenal's model is an example of where football is going, down that American route. And I've said it to you two before, a coach learns from other coaches, cuts his teeth, and then actually gets to coach. Don't sack him after 6 games. They actually get to coach to improve the players and make the decisions. The Kroenkes have done that with the LA Rams, and they won the Super Bowl last year. And it worked. So, that model is going to become more of a popular thing here in England. It's just whether clubs are willing to instigate that properly, and the players all fit the system. It is working. Look, there's no point getting ahead of ourselves, because I would have said top 4 is and still will always be the goal at this moment in time. And my concern is if we lose a few games, fans are going to start getting toxic. But we finished 3rd. It's a joke. But 4th should have always been the aim. So you should be happy if we finish inside that top 4. If we fall completely out of it, it's a complete failure.
Yeah. But you look nailed on. You look completely and utterly nailed on for top 4. And that, but yeah, as you said, even if you went and lost a few games, the fact you've absolutely comfortably got top 4, it looks like, the teams below, like I was looking yesterday, the top 4 now is going to be the top 4. Spurs, despite being 5th, have been absolutely terrible. You've got Chelsea off it, Liverpool off it, Fulham and Brighton. They're doing well, but they're not going to get in the top 4. Obviously,
we needed to lose that top 4 spot last year to improve, because you've got to learn from things. You can't just be giving it and then have nothing to build on. So it was a blessing in disguise, and I thought that would be the case, even though I said we'd finish 6th at the start of the season, just because the teams were better. But it was something to learn on regardless. So it's paid dividends.
Jamie, what's your thoughts on Arsenal at the minute?
like you can't fault them. Sort of like the Spurs game. If you watch them the first half, they didn't really want half time to come because they were going to score again. It was one-way traffic and utter dominance, and I don't think anyone could argue with that. Second half, you could tell they didn't need a goal. I think Ramsdale played very well. I think Sky Sports put up a stat of something like he saved like 2.1 xG from a few of his saves, and he was superb. I with Ramsdale, I think I said it to you after the game, Reese. It's more that's a part of Ramsdale. He's gonna be winding fans up. He's gonna make a few. He's gonna do something a bit reckless at one point, or he's gonna make an error here. But he's also going to produce games like he did against Spurs.
He's a modern day goalkeeper, isn't he? Pickford's an example, Neuer's an example, Edison's an example. You know, they all have that costly mistake in them, but then for a couple of games, they put in performances like that.
Yeah, you've seen it. Sort of even Alisson at Liverpool's made a few sort of errors more with his feet than saving. But I wanted to go just quickly to the fan kicking, which is despicable. Really shouldn't happen. Spurs will get rid of him. He'll be banned probably for life. You can't be doing that. Ramsdale giving it back to Spurs just before that, though. I've heard, I know what it'd be like. He's going to have had grief for at least 45 minutes from that side of the pitch. So he's going to give a bit back. And what he did wasn't awful. I know Richarlison came over, and I don't actually mind Richarlison trying to defend Spurs in the way he's done that and been like, yeah, he's gone and grabbed his bottle and he was going to bugger off. The fans then made it 100 times worse, really. But I think as an Arsenal fan, Arsenal fans should love it. Love that Ramsdale does something like that.
Yeah.
When he's had a superb game. Talking about the other goalie, I give up with Lloris. Like, Spurs fans must be sick of him. They must be going, right, who is our next goalie? Because he makes so many mistakes. Although saying that, Thursday he's going to have a 10 out of 10 game. I might put a bet on him having man the match. Watch him save. I'll give him 4 or 5 world-class saves. But yeah, with that first goal, I was just in such disbelief. I know there was a deflection, but come on, it still wasn't going in. So it was actually better if you just got rid of Lloris. Then it was still going to go past the goal and go wide.
Stand up straight. All he had to do was go like that, literally, and it just would have hit him and gone off.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was just in disbelief when that went in. But take nothing away from Arsenal, they battered them in the first half, and in the second half, Spurs were on top, but you could tell Arsenal didn't need a goal. One person I think should get a bit of credit is Nketiah. He's had a lot of stick, and when Jesus got injured, they went, he's not good enough. He's not going to do anything. He's like, you can't really go, oh, Nketiah didn't score, so you can't give him credit. Jesus wasn't scoring, but people are still giving him credit. So I think Nketiah deserves, he's still not as good as Jesus, in my opinion, but he's fitting in the squad and doing a job. So I think he deserves some credit. Fair play to him.
Yeah. He's not. I still don't think he's good, but he's been superb. So.
He's not.
Yeah, someone you can't fault him so far.
If you need people scoring goals around him, he's not someone he's not a Haaland type goal scorer kind of thing. He's not that type of player. He's someone who's going to work hard for the team. And he sort of, he sort of, I wouldn't say bully, but there was one instance where in the second half you had a throw in, and he had two centre halves with him, one behind, one in front. He managed to bring that ball down, which is shocking from Spurs' point of view, but wonderful from Arsenal's point of view and his point of view. He's stepping up when you need him to. From my point of view, I hope it doesn't continue. I hope he stops scoring, and I hope he has some stinkers. But I need that when you're 8 points clear.
And just, I guess, one kind of final question from me. Well, Reece, I'll get my dig in anyway. Obviously, you had Mudryk, you lost him to Chelsea, even though we're 10th. Do Arsenal and should Arsenal strengthen in January? Because what you don't want to do in some cases is bring in players who might upset the balance. So do you guys think Arsenal should make any signings or just completely leave it, let momentum sort of carry on?
They have to, because I think signing a player that fits their club culture will carry on that momentum. They need cover for Partey, and they probably need just that one other attacking outlet. Because if they're going to take Martinelli off, whatever, who they're going to bring on, consistently. Look, Mudryk is one of them things. I agree. Arsenal shouldn't have had to have paid what they wanted, as silly as that sounds. They're not going to be held to ransom for that. They're going to look for other options, because you want it. City do the same thing. Newcastle are currently doing it. So they probably made the right call, even though I think Mudryk's a great player, to find someone that's going to fit their system and fit that way of culture and help build that momentum. Because if they can bring someone in that improves the team, it's only going to be a beneficial thing. Otherwise, they could be 1 or 2 injuries away from a serious problem.
I think I'd agree with Reece on that. You've also got to look at the bigger picture. So let's say Arsenal don't win the league. They've still got to look for a player that's going to fit Arsenal for 4 or 5 years at least. And like Arteta's project, he's definitely ahead of what he thought in his project. Like, I don't think anyone else can. I think he's even admitted that they're ahead. So the whole point is sticking with that project, bringing the right players for the right price. And like Reece said, City have done it, and quite a lot of them have worked out. I remember Sanchez being one. There was just a few others I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but it sometimes works out. And I don't know enough about the guy, but you might have overpaid, Jordan. That's kind of I don't know enough about him, but I still think you probably have overpaid, but that's not your money, so it don't matter. And I've seen us overpay for players.
I agree. He looks good. He looks good, but kind of you got to respect Arsenal for not sort of. I still think you should have done it. Like when a player wanted, it seemed to join you. I think you should have just got it over the line. But your loss is our gain. I agree with you both. Like if the right player is available, you snap him up in Jan. As long as it's not someone with a massive ego who's going to come in and think that Billy Big Bollocks. You should be fine, and it shouldn't upset the balance. But there you go. That just about wraps us up for another episode. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.